All right. Looks good to go here. Ready, Ziggy?
Are we going to get a count in, or is this going to be a producer Zach situation?
This is it right here. This is producer Zach situation. We are live.
If you can count us in, you're better than producer Zach.
All right, go ahead, Will. I'm pretty sure we're live.
20, 19, 18.
Does it actually say that?
No.
Okay, all right. We're live on the Paul Farrington Show. Here we go here. Paul Farrington joined by Robert Ziggy Ziegler at the University of Virginia. And as you can see, we have producer Will today, a new one. Producer Will. We fired Zach immediately. Zach was fired quite quick after today's. Will, go ahead, show yourself on camera. You're a good-looking guy. I mean, this guy, talk of the town, New York City. he's the man. Will, thanks for filling in for producer Zach today. Would love to hear your voice on air throughout the show, if that's okay. You seem a little timid off the top here.
I'll think about it.
I mean, it's exposing your views to an audience like this. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. People might write mean things about you. Your mother might read them and then feel kind of sad about it.
This could be the big break
for
producer Will here. So, a fun week 4 of the NFL season today. Some up and down emotions throughout the day for us Vikings fans here. We have Eli Ice in the chat right now, just about the only one in the chat. We have 5 people currently listening to this, so we'll see how it goes. That's what happens.
Well, otherwise it's just a normal reaction video. And if you're here for the live, we appreciate you being around. You get a little sneak peek of what's happening.
And that 4:00 games, dude. We'll get to the Commanders in a second, but Jayden Daniels he's impressive right now. I mean, outside of Sam Darnold, maybe the best player in the National Football League over the past couple of weeks here. Yeah, I know. I said it.
Okay. Over the past couple of weeks, maybe.
So we have a few games we're going to hit today. We're going to start off with Caleb Williams and the Bears. How about Caleb Williams and the Bears? 24-18 win over the Rams. A very injured Los Angeles Rams team. And you could tell just from watching Matthew Stafford when he goes out there. I mean, who the hell are they throwing to? No Puka, no Cooper Kupp.
Atwell.
I actually like Tutu Atwell, but, their leading receivers are Tutu, Jordan Whittington, Demarcus Robinson, Colby Parkinson. Whenever those guys, unfortunately, when those guys are your leading receivers, it's probably going to be a tough day for the offense.
You say those are the leading receivers. Besides Kyron Williams, the running back, those were their only receivers.
Those were the only receivers there. So, yeah, here, RBF, that dad. Caleb Williams has nothing to do with that win. And that's one way to look at it. Caleb finishes 17 for 23, 157 yards and a touchdown. There's a little bit of, terrible Steelers to the Bears. When they win games, it seems to be because their defense will make a big play or two, and they'll have big interceptions, and that did happen today. Stafford had a red zone turnover to win the game. They had an interception to win it, and Caleb Williams, he did not win this football game, but he didn't lose it either, and that's what he had been doing earlier this year. So through 4 games now, we've had mostly bad. Today was the best day of his career. Where you stand, where should Chicago Bears fans feel after the huge expectations at 2-2? Would you be happy as a Bears fan?
2 things to say. One is, as a Bears fan, I'm happy that we acquired DeAndre Swift in the offseason. He had 165 yards today. The Bears had 99 yards from players not named DeAndre Swift. So he was really the savior of this game. But here, I think, is the thing to keep in mind and sort of flags Caleb Williams' development. First 3 weeks, how was he against the blitz? He completed 44% of his passes and threw 2 interceptions. Today, he was 8 of 9 for 75 yards and a touchdown versus the blitz. So does that mean that all of Caleb Williams' problems are fixed? No. What it does mean is that today you saw Caleb Williams play the best game of his career. You saw him make some strides forward. And again, everybody who was reasonable expected there would be a period of tumult. It's unlikely that you have guys come out and look like Jayden Daniels and just light up the league from day one. And frankly, Caleb Williams is not getting a lot of help from his offensive coordinator, from the scheming, before today from the run game. So again, Caleb Williams, has he looked like a star? No. Was today real progress? Yes. Are the Bears going to the playoffs? Probably not. Does that mean when you've got 4 games versus the Panthers, Jaguars, Commanders, and Cardinals, with another one against the Patriots after, those are your next 5 games, you should expect to see something from Caleb Williams? I think so.
And what have you said this entire season? You've basically said it doesn't matter for the Bears. Nothing actually matters other than Caleb Williams progressing. And today was a day of progression. Like, frankly speaking, this really was the best game of his career. And he had a couple big time throws. His touchdown to DJ Moore, that connection finally produces a touchdown. It had been a while, but still a lot of dump offs. And DeAndre Swift kind of had a big game today. You got to see a little bit more of the skill position players than we've seen most of the year from Chicago. I think it was actually a really good day to be a Bears fan. You still haven't gotten that game where Jayden Daniels had that Monday night performance where we sat back and were just floored at how good he looked on Monday Night Football. And Caleb hasn't had that moment yet, and he might not have it for a while. He might not even have it this season. You hope he does have it at some point, but you got to be patient with these things. A lot of quarterbacks don't come out, as you said, like Jayden did, like CJ Stroud did at one point last year. And it took CJ a few weeks to get going too. So they'll get there. It's a kind of a cursed organization when it comes to quarterbacks. So you got to be a little patient here. It's been, 80 years and 90 years of Bears football. You've never had any crazy franchise quarterback. Be a little patient on the guy you're hoping for.
Yeah. And this performance still would have been one of the best performances from Justin Fields last year, right?
Yeah. So, Fields is actually looking kind of good here.
Until today.
Yeah. And, I don't know. You know what? We could go over to that game too. So the Steelers and the Colts. Our friend Tommy Cassius here is with us, a big Colts fan. Tommy said Caleb's a fraud earlier. I don't know. We'll get there.
Fill the Jack role.
To fill the Jack role.
We appreciate someone.
So the Colts and Steelers had a big game for the Colts to get back to their winning ways after two really disappointing losses where they kind of just got ran out of the building by the Packers a couple weeks ago. Anthony Richardson's looked bad. So Anthony Richardson actually gets hurt in this game, and Joe Flacco steps in. And Steelers make a late comeback bid, but ultimately Indianapolis is able to hold on, win 27-24, get to 2-2 on the season. The Steelers, who a lot of people, me and you, Ziggy, have said, probably frauds. Probably. They're a good team. It's always going to be a tough time when you play the Steelers, but are they really an undefeated worthy team right now? Probably not. I actually disagree with you on what you said about Justin Fields, though. I thought he looked good today. He was running all over the place. 22 for 34, 312 yards, a touchdown, 10 carries, 55 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Why are you so upset about this?
I mean, so the claim is not that Justin Fields had like a garbage day or whatever, but there's two things. One is you look at the last play, right? That last snap, Justin Fields blew it. But I think more broadly than that, there's a reason why all the Steelers beat reporters came to Justin Fields and said, why did the offense keep stalling today? And the reason is, there was a whole bunch of problems, right? So whether it's the Steelers are in field goal range and Justin Fields runs backwards trying to avoid a sack and fumbles it, whether it's the Steelers drive starting to stall. I mean, like the George Pickens fumble isn't on him. The quarterback keeper out of shotguns probably not on him. But just there were a lot of parts of this offense that didn't go well today. Well, the counting numbers are great. Right, and you get like JPA football on Twitter going, wow, look at Justin Fields' numbers. Is
Big
he
fantasy
elite?
day.
Is he? Yeah, so that'll look great. And if he's on your fantasy team, you can be excited about this. But Justin Fields didn't look like the kind of guy today, I think, even though he's the first quarterback in Steelers history to hit a certain kind of number or whatever, who you can really trust to operate your offense long term. I think he's probably still better than Russell Wilson because there's some things he can do. And I don't think this was bad enough for him to like lose his job or whatever. But there were some critical plays where Justin Fields and the offense came up short. And that makes me bearish on the Steelers really contributing, really being a threat long term.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever really, other than Jack, Jack's not here right now, but Jack's been talking to like a lunatic about the Steelers, putting them at number 2 in his power rankings. And I get that they're 3-0, but sometimes there's a difference between undefeated and a good undefeated. And the Steelers, the Steelers fans make the argument, but everyone else kind of sees them for what they are, and that's a team that relies on big plays from the defense. And if the offense is good, then they can give anyone a test. But there are those days where they just do nothing. I actually thought today they did some stuff on offense that I liked. That George Pickens was awesome. He made countless big catches despite the big fumble he had. Cordell Patterson got going a little bit at one point. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't really think that this Steelers team is one that I fear. But there's someone who, you go into that game, you're going to get some hard hits. It's going to be probably a fourth quarter game, and we'll see you'll see what happens. Hopefully you can pull it out and TJ Watt doesn't win it in the end for Pittsburgh. On the other side, though, for the Colts, I mean, Joe Flacco is really, how impressive has Joe Flacco been the past couple of years now? Just coming in out of nowhere, 16 for 26, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns. He played really, really well.
No, I mean, I think Joe Flacco is a short-term upgrade for this offense. I think.
Ooh.
So the good news is I've been keeping an eye on the Anthony Richardson thing. And while we don't know exactly what it is, he's confident that the MRI is going to come back negative and that's all going to be good. But yes, you say Joe Flacco can step in and distribute the ball effectively. Josh Downs had one of the best games of his career. Michael Pittman had over 100 yards. When Joe Flacco is in your offense, and this feels crazy to say about a guy as old as he is, who's seen as much as he is.
How old is Flacco right now?
He's 39 years old.
Oh my God.
He was born in 1985.
Yeah, the Alabama kid last night was born in 2007.
Yeah, but when Joe Flacco steps in at this point, even though he's almost 40 years old, even though he's never been to a Pro Bowl, you can count on him operating your offense at a decent level. And I think, frankly, the Colts have every game that Anthony Richardson is out and Joe Flacco plays, well, that's not a good thing long term. You have a better chance of winning.
Yeah, are we about to start is Joe Flacco elite conversation again? 10 years later?
What's Joe Flacco's record over his past 10 games?
He's been pretty damn good. Who the Colts have next week? They have Jacksonville next week. So what's the stats on Richardson? Did you see?
Richardson, they're doing an MRI, but everyone says he's in good spirits. He doesn't think it's a big deal. I think the reason they held him out of this game is because if his hip were injured the way it could have been, if you throw him back out there, you might have to get literally an amputation if it goes bad.
Come on, man.
No, seriously. No, I'm serious. Like if your hip
what you like what are you talking about here?
No, if you have a dislocated hip, you can really mess up your leg.
Yeah, I mean, hey, the things I've heard about hip replacement are pretty spectacular. My uncle Mike just got one. He's about to be skipping, sprinting all over the place. I think that I think the hip replacement is actually pretty advanced these days, Ziggy. Talking about
maybe so, but in any case, Anthony Richardson, they held him out, but it looks like he's going to be okay. I think he might play next week, but we don't know. We won't know until the MRI comes back exactly what his status is going to be. But if people thought it was bad, if people thought it was another season-ending injury or a career-altering injury, the vibes would be very, very different.
Will he just slide, for crying out loud? I'm watching the game.
No.
Actually, on the play he got hurt, he's running. I was going, slide, Anthony, slide, Anthony, slide, Anthony. And then he just gets drilled in the back. It's like, when are you going to learn, man? How many injuries is it going to take until you just go down? I don't get it. Slide.
I mean, if you're Shane Steichen, I think you have to. He can't say this publicly, but I'm sure he is furious that his job is in danger just because Anthony Richardson won't go down.
Yeah, I think he's fine for now. But you're right. In the short term, Joe Flacco is probably the better play for the Colts. But they need to get more out of Richardson right now. They just need to. And they looked good on that first drive with him. But he's still been up and down on the season. All right, let's keep looking here. Yeah, please hit the like button from DS. Will, some people have their eyes on producer Will here. I mean, so Tommy Cash is kind of cute. We have a couple people saying,
I will just say this.
I like this Will
Shane
dude.
Steichen.
Ziggy immediately coming back to Shane.
No, just one thing to say. He was, I'll use the word psychotic. Like Anthony Richardson goes out with a right hip injury, comes back in, and you immediately call a QB run. So maybe Anthony Richardson's not the only problem here, is all I'll say.
Yeah, good points there. Good points. From Eli Ice, he says AR-15 is a bust. So is Will Levis. So is Bryce Young. Jack did call the Bryce Young one so far. I thought that was really impressive from Bryce Young last week when they showed Andy Dalton come in the locker room and all the Panthers players were cheering for him. Bryce Young, first guy to say hello. Class act from Bryce Young, even though he can't throw a football right now.
I bet Bryce Young's a great guy.
He is,
and indeed, even if he's not a great guy, he has to act like one or his career's over. But the better, 1 week of good Andy Dalton, you can maybe set it aside. But now that Andy Dalton has looked good and like pretty good in this offense in 2 consecutive weeks, you have to really wonder what is wrong with Bryce Young.
Yeah, I think this is a situation where we will see Bryce Young again at some point this year, probably, if the Panthers get out of contention, which I expect to see at some point.
Out of contention, they're 1-3.
Well, they're 1-3, but if you win a couple games, and Dalton's look good. They're out of contention. They're not actually going to contend. But if they have a couple of surprise wins here or there, they haven't looked bad.
I mean, Bryce Young's the 3rd best quarterback on that roster, behind Johnny Hecker, fake punt god.
I used to produce a show with Bryce Young, as well as the Bryce Young podcast when he was at Alabama. Talked to his father one day. Bryce was running late for like an hour. Nice family. We move on. We move on here.
I will just say just one last thing about that game is this was a huge win for the Bengals. They really needed to turn things around. And finally today, you saw Jamar Chase unleashed. You saw T. Higgins do his thing. You saw Chase Brown break out, get a couple of touchdowns. Bengals are going to use this momentum, I think, hosting Baltimore next week.
You're right. Thank you for slowing me down there. I was about to completely overshadow the Bengals, who the Bengals had a pretty easy line today, 4.5. I mean, come on, guys. We all handed that out earlier on the show.
I mean, Jack said they were going to get blown out.
Yeah, but Jack's out of his mind. We all know that. Everyone knows that. He somehow is right most of the time, but he really is out of his mind. No, this saved their season. You lose to Carolina, you're in a lot of trouble. I don't care what the Ravens are doing. I don't care what the Steelers are doing. If you lose to the Panthers to go 0-4, you're kind of screwed. Even Joe Burrow. Yeah, that would be when we finally put out their doomed video, and then it would blow. Then they would go 7-0 over the next 7 games. But 34-24, big win for them. They didn't look great, but they did find way. Burrow had a horrendous interception, but they get the job done. This is pretty funny here. Dirty Rut says Mike. So the people have caught on that Michael Rotundo is Mike the Jinx, who's done some spectacular and terrible things over the years. Just you remember the scene in Harry Potter when he gets the wand? He's like spectacular, extraordinary, terrible things. Like that's like Mike, who's just he could cost anyone thousands of dollars in seconds. Dirty Rut realized this and said, "Mike, who are you going for in this game? I'll bet the opposite." He's not a fade, Dirty Rut. He's a jinx. That's the thing. So you don't want him. You just don't want him watching your game because he could say anything and ruin your day. I don't want to wait any longer on this, Ziggy, because we've been kind of excited to talk about it. Jayden Daniels is unbelievable. He's amazing. I can't. He's so much fun to watch. The Commanders 42-14 over the Cardinals, who maybe your Cardinals prediction is kind of coming back down to earth, unfortunately. But I can't believe what I'm watching with the Commanders right now. Every time they pop up his graphics, 26 for 30, 233 yards, a touchdown, a pick. He rushes for 47 yards and a touchdown. It's just unbelievable what this kid is doing for a franchise that's been so bad for so many years, where all of a sudden I'm kind of looking around the NFC East and I see Philadelphia looking like crap. I see Dallas looking like crap. I see the Giants looking like crap. And here are the Commanders, 3-1, big road wins over the Bengals and the Cardinals. Just, I mean, come on. Like at some point is the NFC East has to be on, right?
I mean, this was a Cliff Kingsbury revenge angle, right? If you saw near the end of the game, he stared down the Cardinals sideline. No matter what he said before the game, this was a revenge angle, and he's doing an incredible job with Jayden Daniels. You ask if the NFC East is on. I feel like Mr. Clickbait for saying this, but you're right. Clickbait. It's hard to see how it couldn't be. They're leading the division. The teams around them are looking weak. And even though, Jayden Daniels isn't doing anything besides running spectacular, he's doing everything really, really well. And that's spectacular in itself. Simplicity is often the hardest thing to master. He's getting the ball where it needs to go. He's feeding whoever needs to get fed. He's enough of a rushing threat that both he's doing well and he's unlocking Brian Robinson Jr. Yeah, I mean, this team has some impressive wins. You go to Cincinnati, you win. You go to Arizona, you dominate. The loss to the Buccaneers was his first NFL game, and he didn't even look that bad in that. Yeah, and you look at the upcoming schedule, they've got a lot of easy games. Right?
It's so insane.
I absolutely think the division's in play.
I think, oh my gosh, it's too loud. I think that Jayden Daniels right now, is it crazy to say that he is, at this very moment in time, playing the best football in the NFC? Quarterback? I'm not sure.
The best football in the NFC.
Of the quarterbacks. I mean, who are you putting above him? Darnold's up there. Darnold's playing great. I don't love is too late right now on Goff. Caleb, no. Goff, no. Baker's playing really well. But I don't see any of these
among
guys.
NFC quarterbacks, I'm not sure that's the most competitive audience. But yeah, he's played very well. He's a threat passing. He's a threat running. He's done an excellent job avoiding turning over the ball. Was today's first turnover in the NFL?
I don't know if it was his first turnover or not, but he doesn't.
I think it was. I don't think he'd thrown an interception before this.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and that's why I'm. That's the point you said. It's not much. There's not much competition in the NFC, but that's the whole point of this. Is that if the Commanders are 3-1 and the NFC's kind of floundering all over the place, and the Bucs and Vikings and Seahawks are the division leaders right now, and people, are up and down on them for whatever reasons they may believe, but the Commanders have a real shot. I mean, who would have thought after week 4, the Commanders, Seahawks, Vikings, and Bucs are leading the divisions? Like that's
Certainly
twisted.
not us.
Yeah, that's sickening. I don't
And
know
if
what's
you're a
going on.
Commanders fan, I think what you can look forward to is your games against, because the divisional games against the Eagles and the Cowboys, you've got to do well in those if you want to win the division. All 4 of those games are in the last 7 weeks. So this is Jayden Daniels just starting out his NFL career. If he can get even better from here, I'll own it. I made fun of Commanders fans who were telling me that if Jayden Daniels comes in and plays to his potential, the division would be in play for them. But the defense is solid. Is it the best defense in the NFL? No, but it's good enough. And the offense can score enough to keep up with anyone.
I think it's absolutely on because and it's really for the reasons of the competition right now in the NFC East. I'm sorry, Will. Will's a big Giants fan. I'm sorry, Will. I actually think the Giants are outperforming expectations, even though they're at 1-3 right now.
Yep.
Like they're still playing solid. Like I think Daniel Jones actually looked okay on Thursday night. But the Cowboys look bad. I really don't think that the Cowboys have impressed me much at all, despite, they're 2-2 and they've had some, big win on Thursday.
The Cowboys do look better than the Giants, but
yeah, they look better than the
that's
Giants.
Not a
but
high bar to clear.
The Commanders easily look the best in this division. Philadelphia still actually scares me, and I think it might be more because of what they did 2 years ago than what they are now, and maybe the start they had last year. I'm still kind of in that, these could be juggernauts, and I'm not actually ready to fade them yet until I see them disappoint me with A.J. Brown on the field. But the Commanders are easily playing the best in that division. So I think it's crazy to say that they're not 100% a threat to win the NFC East. And who knows? I mean, who knows at this point? Speaking of the Eagles, what a rebound performance for the Buccaneers beating Philadelphia today in Tampa. I saw a comment that said, how the hell did we lose to the Broncos? And I kind of agree with them. The Buccaneers have looked really good all year, except for that kind of weird. And teams just have these games. And Denver's 2-2, but not really impressed except the Bucs. So I think it was a great rebound spot for Tampa, when Baker's on, the defense was flying around today. Vita Vea's all over the place. They're sacking Jalen Hurts. That game really was never close. Unlike the Viking game, which had the absurd comeback, this game was never even close. And the Tampa Bay, to me, is still the favorite. I think they're the best team in the NFC South. It's going to be between them and the Falcons. But what do you think of that resounding performance from Baker and Tampa?
The thing that I've said about Tampa Bay is I will believe in them when Baker Mayfield shows he can produce, when it's not just Mike Evans and Chris Godwin after the catch. And today he did that. I'm not saying those guys didn't make a big contribution, but Baker Mayfield stepped up and did quite a bit, right? 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And the way that on offense, they just crushed the Eagles. They got double the number of first downs they did. They doubled the number of yards the Eagles did. They had no turnovers to the Eagles too. Like Baker Mayfield stepped up and took care of business in a big way. And it wasn't just 3 or 4 yard passes the guys were housing. He did a lot this game. So again, you look at continuity. I think this is something people underrate when they're looking at NFL teams, and I can fall into this. It's easy to be excited about the new flashy quarterback or the new weapons or whatever. But when guys have been in the same building for years, they can often unlock the best in each other in a way that just throwing a bunch of players together doesn't. And given that the Buccaneers have the most continuity of these NFC South teams, it's hard not to think, even though they've got matchups against the Falcons and the Saints in the next 2 weeks where a lot will be revealed, that they shouldn't be considered the favorites in the division.
Do they have the highest ceiling in the NFC South? I guess we've seen New Orleans play fantastic in a couple games to start the year, and Atlanta's had impressive wins. Had the impressive win in Philly, battled Kansas City to the wire, maybe should have won that game. When each NFC South, and hey, Carolina, just saying what they did against the Raiders, just throw it out there. When each NFC South team plays their best football, who do you think is the best team there?
It's hard to know. I know that's not a very.
Come on, just give me something.
Answer.
Give me something. Come on, who's the best team in the NFC South? They all play their best. Who's winning that game?
It's hard not to look at the team that went to Dallas and beat the Cowboys 44-19.
That's a good point.
After coming off a 37-point win, and say when they hit their ceiling, they're not the best. But we don't know what the ceiling of this Falcons team is. We don't know what it'll be like when Kirk Cousins plays his best and gets a little bit more settled. I think it's probably not the Buccaneers. I don't think they have the highest ceiling, but that doesn't matter. What matters is whether you can play good football week in, week out. And the Buccaneers are the only team in this division that's shown they can do that.
Other than the embarrassing loss to the Broncos.
Look, the embarrassing loss to the Broncos is bad, but they've put together 3 good performances. They've shown they're consistent. They've got guys who've been in the building for a while. I don't know. I'm confident that this Bucs team will continue to play decent football, and I think that could be enough to win the division.
I am most confident in the Bucs as well to win the division at this point in time. I think I've been high on Atlanta. Mostly, it's Kirk bias, honestly.
We love Kirk.
We love Kirk. We love Kirk Cousins. I wear Kirk Cousins shirts. He's not even a Viking anymore. The only guy I've worn a shirt for. But Kirk Cousins and Atlanta, they do. I do like their ceiling on the season. But Tampa Bay, I mean, this is now, a year and a half of really good football from Baker Mayfield. So making that 3-year, $100 million contract look good right now for Tampa Bay. And as far as the Eagles go, quickly on Philly, Jalen Hurts is starting to get questions from some Eagles fans. 18 for 30, 158 yards, a touchdown. But I still think A.J. Brown's such a key component of this offense that it's hard to get too upset with him. When what's his face? Did Devontae Smith play today?
No.
So he didn't play either. I mean,
it was Dallas Goedert,
yeah.
And then Grant Calcaterra was number 2.
Yeah, so I have a hard time getting on Jalen too much when he's missing 2 of the best receivers in football, as far as, especially, one of the best number 1s, one of the best number 2s in the league. So it's people like to hate on the Eagles, and I'll hate on the Eagles. Producer will hate on the Eagles as much as anyone, but we got to be fair to them when they're missing some key guys.
No, I mean, the thing to worry about is, with the contract you handed Jalen Hurts, and that's a big contract.
That
right?
is it, yes.
You don't want him to be a guy who absolutely needs to have everyone healthy around him. And that doesn't mean injuries don't matter, but they signed him. They functionally committed to 6 years of Jalen Hurts coming off of that 2022 season. And even when Jalen Hurts has those guys around him, he's never looked that good since. He hasn't recaptured that magic from the 2022 season.
The highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL right now, right? Ziggy, listen to these 10. These are the 50 million club QBs, okay? And tell me whether or not you trust them to carry a game if they have to, okay? Dak, 60 million a year.
Probably not.
Probably not. Burrow?
Without weapons, Joe Burrow hasn't looked
right now, I think I trust Burrow, but Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence.
I've been bearish on Burrow for a long time. I think he's solid, but take away all the weapons, I don't know.
Trevor Lawrence, 55 million. I mean, that looks horrendous right now. Jordan Love, 55 million. Jury's out.
Question mark.
Well, I mean, he supports our entire YouTube channel. So yes, Jordan Love obviously can carry a team. The jury's out. Tua, no. Jared Goff, no. Justin Herbert, no.
Justin Herbert's in sort of.
Lamar Jackson, yes. And Jalen Hurts, no. I mean, there's one guy on this list that I confidently say, yes, that's Lamar Jackson.
I mean, when people talk about quarterback salaries going up, I think it's not the high end you have to look at. We've never been in an era where so many mediocre quarterbacks get close to top of the market deals. I mean, you look like Mahomes
look at these
is
guys.
45. Maybe you say that's an outlier. Allen's at 43. Stafford's at 43. Like most of the guys who are signing these records, close to record-setting extensions, are guys who haven't shown they're elite quarterbacks.
Yeah, or have done it that long. Like Love I think you have to pay Love because he had the huge year, but he hasn't done it that long. But
that's a new phenomenon. The NFL is the same thing with Jalen Hurts. Really, they paid him coming off of one good year.
There are maybe 4 quarterbacks in the NFL who should be over 50 million, and 3 of them aren't. It should be, or 2 of them aren't. It should be Mahomes. It should be Josh Allen, Lamar, absolutely, probably Burrow, and then Sam Darnold. Those are your 5 right there. Other than that, no one else should be getting over 50. So I don't. It's just the league we're in.
The thing is, as you're lining up to pay Trevor Lawrence 55 million or Tua 53 million or whatever, we can sort of laugh about Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold at 10 million, Geno Smith at 25, Baker Mayfield at 33. Like those guys are values compared to what you're paying at the top of the market. And I think we're going to see a shift eventually.
Speaking of quarterbacks who are about to make an absolute crap load of money, CJ Stroud and the Texans, they had a nice comeback win, survived 24-20 win. Texans fans, that's probably the best word to say it. They survived. Texans fans come into this one, the Jaguars are reeling. What an absolute nightmare on Monday Night Football against Buffalo, who buried them. People turned that off at halftime unless you were invested for fantasy. But to CJ Stroud is time and time again now. in terms of quarterbacks, you want to have the football in clutch time. He delivers. He does it all the time. He did it his rookie year. He's doing it now. And I don't really care what they've looked like. The Texans are 3-1. They have a big win against a division opponent. They're not playing their best football, but when you're not playing your best football and winning, you take it as long as you find ways to get better by middle of the season. Because otherwise, then you approach the fraud status. But it's ideal if you believe in the team to be playing really well at the end of the year. You're 3-1, stealing these games you should lose. Then that's when you have the ability to contend for a 1 seed and go a long way.
There's two ways of looking at it, right? One way of looking at it is you're stealing games you should lose. On the other hand, you're looking at CJ Stroud needs to put together end of game drives against the Colts, Bears, and Jaguars.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm not saying that that's decisive or anything, but we will find out next week when Josh Allen and the Bills come to Texas, whether it's these close games against middling to bad teams are what's real, or whether it's getting blown out against the Vikings that's real.
They have, what's the upcoming schedule here? They have Buffalo, then they're at New England, at Green Bay. They host the Colts.
And at New York.
Those are the next 5 games. Between the Bills, the Jets, and the Packers, those are teams you're expecting to contend. No offense, Tommy, about the Colts. Maybe with Joe Flacco. Maybe.
The Colts are 2-2 in the division. They're the only other team in the division with a win.
And they played them close. They played them close in week 1. But yeah, next week's the real test. How do you look against Buffalo? How do you look against the team that's probably played the best football in the NFL through 4 weeks so far? You're at home. This is your opportunity. Like when we look back on the Texans in December, if they're actually a playoff threat, they could have a 1 seed chance if they win games like this. You get the tiebreaker here. That could determine, are you going to snowy Buffalo or are you hosting the game in your dome? That's where, these games do matter a lot, even though it's still early in the season. I'm excited to see. I want to see this Houston team come together, though. I was so excited to have Tank Dell and Diggs and Nico Collins running all over the field looking like animals. Joe Mixon playing well. And some injuries have gotten in the way, but I still feel like we haven't seen it click. So maybe a game like today is one that could help turn it around where, you essentially have a walk-off touchdown to win it.
Yeah, and I will say this, is Nico Collins might be, in fantasy, the number 1 wide receiver this year overall. He has had an absolute breakout season. People saw it coming, right? People like Matt Harmon from Reception Perception were just pounding the table that he was that guy. I'm not sure how many people listened. With CJ Stroud playing as good as he is and with Nico Collins playing as good as he is, I think there's a real argument that's the best QB wide receiver connection in the NFL right now. I think the only real competition for how it's been played is Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson. Those guys have looked electric together. And they've been the backbone of the offense, right? Stephon Diggs is getting a fair number of touchdowns. Tank Dell, as you say, can step up when it's big. But Nico Collins, if he doesn't put up 150 yards and a touchdown today, they don't win the game.
This chat is getting a little dangerous here with a lot of our friends. We usually don't have much of our friends joining these chats, so it's starting to get a little bit dangerous here. But our guy Tommy says Stroud overperformed his rookie season. Texans will regress to 9-7 despite the talent. They haven't looked great. So there is a degree of, hey, who are you? Are you last year's Philly, who was 9-1 or whatever, 10-1, and masked all the mistakes and ultimately showed your true colors late in the year? Or are you that team that's, just kind of finding ways and will eventually explode at the end of the year?
It is just painful that you've played 3 one-score games against 3 of the bottom probably 10 teams in the NFL. And the only team you've played that's undisputably good, you lost 34-7.
Hey, thank you for saying that.
Again, I'm not saying the Texans are bad, right? But I don't think we've seen a lot. Everybody's eager. CJ Stroud is 3rd in MVP odds. Everybody's eager to say they're a 1 seed contender because they're 3-1 and the Super Bowl could be on. What have we actually seen from this team that makes you so confident they're going to be good?
Dylan's right here when he says the penalties have been killing Houston. Let me see. I didn't see their penalty total today. Let me see.
88 yards, 11 penalties. And they came at the worst times.
Wait, I'm seeing 12 penalties.
Sorry, that was against the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm seeing 12 penalties for 93 yards, and they killed themselves against the Bears too. You got to tighten that up. You're not gonna get a 1 seed. You might not even win a division with that kind of performance there. And the Colts are what, 2-2? They're right behind you. So that is crazy that the Colts are 2-2 with how they've looked in their 2 losses. But yeah, you can't be having 12, 10, 8 penalties a game. It'll cost you at some point. And you know what game it'll cost you in? The divisional round when you play the Baltimore Ravens on the road and you get blown out and embarrassed. Like that, you have to tighten that up. So I do like the future for Houston. A lot of people are down on them, but I like the future for them this season. All right, real quick, Ziggy, I do want to touch just briefly. Do I want to touch on the... Yeah, you know what? I do want to touch on the Vikings being the Packers briefly and the big reaction. You could go over and check out. We had an extended 25-minute reaction of the Vikings absolutely thrilling 31-29 win over Green Bay. And I do just want to bring up, as far as Green Bay goes, we mentioned this a lot, but I think it's actually, someone said it's a bittersweet feeling for both teams. It kind of is bittersweet, but I actually would view it more on the positive side. Again, I'm more of an optimist now. Remember, I turned from pessimistic Paul to optimistic Paul. If you look at it that way, Green Bay, to be able to turn it on the way they did and have Jordan Love, go from 0 to hero pretty quickly in that game. I think that you're a Packer fan. You're walking away and you're happy. You're actually okay with it. Disappointed in the loss, but this team showed that. I mean, how many teams in the NFC right now are you scared of? Is it maybe just the Vikings?
Yeah, and let's not forget, right? They did better as miserable as they played against the Vikings defense. The 49ers were worse. The Texans were way worse. Nobody has exploded against the Vikings defense like the Packers did in that fourth quarter.
This was the first game where I watched the defense and thought for a second, oh, they look gassed. They look miserable out there. And the first half was not the story. But then all of a sudden, when the offense kind of slowed down and the Packer defense got going, this was the first time all year that the Vikings were really in danger. And in that fourth quarter, they were. So I get that Packer fans should probably be disappointed, but they can look at this game and say, okay, they got to beat the Rams next week. They lose to the Rams, the narrative changes. It's a week-to-week league. But if you go out there and get a win, go to 3-2, Love looks good, he's finally 100% healthy. Yeah, I'm not worried at all if I'm a Packer fan. It's just a disappointing loss. They want you in the poncho.
They've got a tricky schedule coming up. Traveling across the country to play the Rams is always tough, though that'll be a home game in terms of crowd. Then they play the Cardinals. Then they play the Texans. So those are 3 teams. I can see them losing any of those games, but I can also see them winning all 3 of them. So yeah, what it's going to come down to is, as a Packers fan, I would just be hoping.
I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I'm taking on the persona of a Packers fan, right? So if I'm a Packers fan, what I'm sitting at home and saying is, Jordan Love came out, looked rattled, his knee wasn't 100%. But once he got comfortable, we were very pleased of how he played. And he looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
You got to stop talking like you're making it really sound.
I'm taking on a persona.
It's a little too much for me. I don't like hearing it.
Well, you should talk to my students. This is what I do when I'm sort of educating. I take on the persona of the view I'm adopting, right? So you want to talk about occasionalism, I'll be Father Malebranche or whatever.
Oh boy.
But yeah, it's all that to say, their offense looked pretty good today. It started off horrible, but if you look at the totality of the game, there was a lot to like. Jordan Love clearly showed he can be clutch in big moments and get it done. And that should leave you feeling optimistic with some winnable games coming up. And honestly, all things considered, a relatively light schedule. Some of the games that you might have thought would be brutal, like hosting the Dolphins, are not so bad.
Yeah, and I think at the Jaguars right now, the Jacksonville on the road maybe, but not as daunting as you may have thought at the start of the year. I think they're going to win the next 4. I think they're going to go into the Los Angeles and beat an injured Rams team. The Cardinals at home, that should be a win. The Texans at home, that'll the explosive potential there. But I think they'll win that, and I think they'll go into Jacksonville and win. And then you get the Lions at home in that situation. You're 6-2. And
yeah, then you're only 2 games behind the Vikings.
Yeah, then you're 2 games behind the Vikings, and you have a chance to jump ahead of Detroit for sole possession of second place.
I know you can't do this, but
no, you can.
Looking ahead at the Vikings schedule, if we can just survive the Jets and the Lions. After the Jets and the Lions, here's the run. Seriously, at LA, at the Rams, host the Colts,
win.
At the Jaguars,
win.
At the Titans,
win.
At the Bears,
win.
Host the Cardinals,
win.
Host the Falcons,
win.
Host the Bears,
win.
At Seattle,
win.
Host the Packers,
win.
At Detroit,
win.
Well, we're resting the starters that game.
Yeah,
right?
so
you
lost.
lost
So
the
10 and 1.
seed.
All right, so we're 10 and 1.
It's honestly, I think you have to start taking the Vikings seriously as a contender for the NFC 1 seed.
All right. Oh. Careful, Ziggy.
No, look, they've got 2 games on every other team you would have said preseason as a contender, except maybe the Lions.
And they have the
How do you given what you have seen from the Vikings, right? We've got the tiebreaker against San Francisco.
mm-hmm.
How do you not consider them a real contender for the 1 seed, given that they are the only team in the NFC that's undefeated, that they've done
Seahawks.
that playing
Hey,
very good
Seahawks.
teams?
Seahawks still undefeated.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot the Seahawks haven't played yet. Well, the Seahawks are going to lose.
Yeah, Seahawks suck.
It will beat the Seahawks anyway.
Yeah, people, Michael Rotundo. All right, relax, Ziggy. I see you've been drinking early.
No, but why not? Why not take the Vikings seriously? What did we say? We said before this week, if the Vikings go into Lambeau and win, we will start taking them seriously as a real deal team. Well, guess what? They went into Lambeau.
Yeah,
and
dude,
they won.
You don't have to convince me. I'm on. I'm there. I'm there. I'm ready to print out the Why Not Us shirts. I'm ready to go. I think Vikings. I seriously think at this point in time, the Vikings and the Packers are the 2 most dangerous teams in the NFC. That's probably what I'm thinking at the moment. San Francisco. I'll put San Francisco in there as well. I gotta be careful. I gotta step out the gas a little bit.
I mean, Brock Purdy has looked very, very good.
They dominated today.
I mean, but Christian McCaffrey, I don't know.
You gotta get McCaffrey back. That's actually an interesting. Who are your top 3 contenders in the NFC right now, Ziggy? Just off the dome. NFC East, I mean, Washington. Like, I don't think anyone in the South is in the top 3.
By contenders, do you mean Super Bowl contenders or?
Let's say, who to win the NFC?
I mean, the 49ers have to be there.
They have to.
I think the Lions have to be there.
Vikings
because just from what we've seen, why not put the Vikings up there at 3?
All right. No, the Lions. You're right. Chris says as well. What about the Lions? The Lions.
The Lions haven't looked great the past few games. We've got a long track record of them being good. It's very hard for me not to put them as one of the top contenders.
I think those are your top 4, which is kind of nuts that the NFC North has 3 of the top 4 contenders at this point in time. And the Eagles or Cowboys or Commanders, a bunch of the South teams, like everyone's right there. I don't think there's a big, maybe you're snoozing on it. All right. I don't think that there's like
the NFC East.
There's sometimes a clear gap between teams, and I'm not sure if anyone in the NFC at this point in time has shown that they have created that space between everyone else. We're still a few weeks away from me willing to say the Vikings are there, but. Yeah, I think it's wide open. That's super cool for the sport. That's what's great about football is that anyone can win at any given point in time. Okay, is there any, before we wrap up here, is there any other games? I feel like there's another one I wanted to talk about.
Do you want to talk Broncos-Jets at all?
Yeah, briefly here. I mean, our friend CJ has been texting us about the Jets. He's a big Jets fan, and he's just like, I'm not, with all due respect, not listening to the show this week. Like, I can't take all the embarrassment.
Can you believe that receivers on the Broncos not named Cortland Sutton had a combined 0 yards.
Yeah, hey, producer Will, can you throw yourself on for a second? Can you guess how many passing yards Bo Nix had in this game?
261.
Producer Will.
201 from that.
Producer Will did not watch the Jets and Broncos game. 60 yards. 60 yards. If I told you that Bo Nix threw 12 for 25 for 60 yards and 1 touchdown.
Don't forget, there was a fumble for the Broncos that game.
Would you think that the Broncos won that football game in New York? Producer Will?
No.
Yeah, no. That is the answer I'm looking for. No. 10-9, they win. And, the Jets, they moved down the field in the first half, got a bunch of field goals from your boy, Ziggy, Greg Zuerlein, your boy, who missed the game winner at the end, a 50-yarder to win it for the Jets, who dropped to 2-2. And they're just such a weird, confusing team. Like, the entire season to have the stinker against San Francisco and then rebound with a dominant win over the Patriots and now this win here, like this loss here. Who are the Jets? I don't know. I want to think they're good. I want to believe Aaron Rodgers is back, but when you lose to the Broncos at home in a game where Bo Nix throws for 60 yards, like what the hell are you doing? How can you believe in this team?
No, I mean, it's the thing I think that's most disturbing for the Jets is in this game, it's dumping rain. What you need is, and Aaron Rodgers threw for 230 yards in miserable weather. All you need is something, anything out of your running game, and you win this game handily. And what do you get? Breece Hall, 10 carries. You know how many yards Breece Hall had this game?
Producer Will, how many yards do you think Breece Hall had in this game?
10 carries.
10 carries. That's going to be 28 yards.
4. He averaged 0.4 yards per carry. He might have lost the job to Braylon Allen today.
Yeah, hey, Braylon Allen, hey, Wisco guy, he's good. We like Braylon Allen.
But Braylon Allen was 8 carries, 34 yards. It's not like he was a whole lot better. Like this Jets team, despite Aaron Rodgers doing quite a bit, this Jets team could not get a functional offense going. And that's deeply, deeply worrying. Again, I mean, I think should the alarm bells be on for the Jets? Not exactly. I think the alarm bells go off if you get blown out by the Vikings next week. But what have you actually got for this season? You've got getting crushed by the 49ers. You've got beating the Titans in a close game. You've got crushing the Patriots at home. Nice win. Don't get me wrong.
Nice win.
And you've got losing to Bo Nix throwing 60 yards.
Hey, maybe the Broncos are just back. maybe the Broncos are just there.
This Broncos team is miserable. They're not good.
I think. I think they are.
No, you can't look at this game and say they're a good team.
No, I know.
You can't use this as evidence they're good. This game was evidence they're bad.
Yeah, I can't get behind it. I just don't know what to think with the Jets. Like, they do. Now they have to go to London and play a hot Vikings team, and then they have Buffalo after that. At Pittsburgh. I mean, I know we talked about their schedule being easy, but the whole point of an easy schedule is you got to win the easy games because you have a couple tough ones coming up. And if you're losing to the Broncos, it's going to be tough to get into the playoffs. You got to win these ones. So they need at least 2, I think, in the next 3. Maybe 1 in the next 3. To be 3-4. Then you got New England again, Houston, Arizona, Indy, Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville. I feel like every team is playing the same. I feel like every team we've read through their schedule today, it's like they play Jacksonville, they play the Colts, they play the Dolphins. But yeah, like you got to win these games. It's just
and it's worrying because Aaron Rodgers was hurt at the end of the game, right? There was a sack near the end of the game and he was clearly hobbled afterwards. And they asked him what it was, and all he had to say was, "I've got problems in both legs."
That's not a great answer.
No, that's not a great answer when the thing he's grabbing is his left leg near his Achilles. It's not like he ruptured or anything, but it doesn't seem like that's 100%. And you're going to face the Vikings defense next week. They will give you no respite. You have to face the Bills. And if you're this Jets team, you got to face the Steelers after. You start 2-5, 3-4. I mean, you might make the playoffs out of that, right? The AFC is a lot of teams losing a lot of games, but you were hoping to compete for the division. You were hoping to be near the top of the seeding. You were hoping that this would be the year where Aaron Rodgers finally brings things together. And the Aaron Rodgers-led offense scored no touchdown. That's only happened in 3 games that Aaron Rodgers has played in his career where he's finished the game.
GSE123 says, wait, alarm bells for losing to the Vikings next week, but not the Broncos, Ziggy?
There's hope, I think, that they're 2-2. You can say this was miserable. The weather was bad. But they're 2-2. If they beat the Vikings next week, they can say, all right, we're starting to get things together. If you start 2-3, if you start 2-4, by alarm bells here, I mean alarms of we're not making the playoffs level of alarm. I think already the alarm bells for we're not a contender. I was pounding the table for it this offseason. Aaron Rodgers is too old to transform this offense.
I mean, you're a hater, though. Yeah, I mean,
I'm a hater, but guess what? You're counting on the Jets to turn it around.
No, I know.
The Jets were one of the most picked teams in survivor pools this week. See how that went.
I know.
They're one of those teams.
They're one of those teams. They're one of those teams. I'm reading this. This makes me happy. Dominator says, I am so depressed about the Packers. Tyler Ballard tries to cheer him up. Don't be depressed. Love was rusty. Packers had a great chance to win after playing a horrible couple quarters. Dominator, just let me be dramatic for a day or two. People come to this channel, Ziggy. It's kind of sickening.
That's what it is
Ziggy.
to be a Packers fan. Is you're dramatic for a day or two, and then you say, "Oh, the skies are clear. We're the Green Bay Packers. Everything works out perfectly." La di da di da.
Hey, you know what? I like seeing it though, because people come to the sick thing about this channel. And it really is sick, is that people come here to see us sad. I don't know, like that. That is why people tune in. They want to see me and you in absolute misery, and the tables have turned for a day. it'll be short lived, and I know who butters our bread as well. So we're not gonna go down your throat and make fun of you or anything like that. But
no, and they don't deserve to be made fun.
No, they don't. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. It was a really good game actually. But
no, and I'm overselling how good I think the Vikings are. Well, I think their record says they're very, very good and they've got a chance. It's not like this team's a lock, one of the best teams in the NFL.
Yes.
But how do you not get, we do our best to be objective here, but how do you not get a little bit excited as a Vikings fan after what you've seen the past 4 weeks?
Yeah, you have to. And I'm very excited for the rest of the season in the NFC North. The very last thing I want to talk about, the very, very last thing, because as much as we dislike the Packers here, like I hate the Saints. I really hate the Saints. It stems from pettiness, 2009. I am a petty person. Like I root for eternal misery for the Saints. I hope that it can be as painful as possible every year. I think I've been rewarded with that so far. They've really had some heartbreaking playoff losses, and Saints fans are like, "Why us? Why is this happening?" I'm like, "You deserve it forever." And the loss against Atlanta today was great. I mean, as Kirk down the field, I said, Kirk Cousins, Younghoe Koo. That sounds like a nightmare for someone trying to stop a 2-minute drive to win the game. Younghoe Koo just blasts a 58-yarder. I mean,
Can I just ask a question really quick?
Please.
How do you score 24 points and lose to a team with 0 offensive touchdowns?
Well, that's what's unbelievable about Atlanta today. What was it? A fumbled punt by New Orleans recovered, interception for a touchdown. Like
Younghoe Koo 14 points.
Younghoe Koo 14 points. It was the Falcons are finding kind of weird ways to win. What's Atlanta? 2-2. They can easily be 0-4. Like they can easily be undefeated, but they could also easily be 0-4. They should have lost to Philadelphia. They probably should have lost today. But here they are 2-2. They're kind of like Houston in some ways where you're waiting for it to work. I trust Houston to figure it out a lot more than I do Atlanta. But at some point in the year, you kind of want to see Kirk Cousins take that step to where he was last year with the Vikings, that he got into that like by game 5, I think it was. 5 through 7, he was just on fire. You need him to get to that level, and he hasn't been. I mean, 21 for 35, 238, and a pick today. Like, Kirk is not playing great football at the moment. But they're 2-2, and they're hanging in there, and they're 1 game back. So, and I know I was making fun of the Saints a lot. I do think that the Saints will be battling for the NFC South all year, too. And Derek Carr, for the most part, has looked good on the year. No touchdowns today and a pick, but great win for Atlanta, who this whole NFC South is going to be really close.
We'll see. The Saints get a chance to prove themselves. They're heading to Kansas City next week.
Congratulations, Gabriel. He said I had Koo for fantasy. Best kicker ever. Yeah, Koo. Younghoe Koo. Whenever Koo hits a kick in our house, we all just go, Koo. Best kicker ever. I don't know about that, though. Ridgewood, New Jersey, right next door. Pretty cool for us. Maybe we'll get him on the show one time. Aiden Cook. Oh, hey, look, our friend Aiden's here. Aiden's probably like, oh, please, God, stop talking about me. Are the Chiefs still the biggest team to fear if Rice did tear his AC? Yeah, I'm really upset about that. Do you see Rashee Rice? Mahomes threw a pick and then tore Rashee Rice's ACL probably. I mean, we don't know yet, but I think that's a huge
Anthony
loss.
Richardson, everyone's talking great. Like, everybody's excited. He'll probably be okay. Rashee Rice, everybody's saying it
looked really
like
bad.
When Andy Reid was asked about it, what he said was, "We feel terrible for Rashee."
Here it is. Rashee Rice is feared to have suffered a torn ACL. Just broke on ESPN. So I actually do, to answer Aiden's question, he was such a dynamic piece of that offense. I just said on the recording today, remember they said, who's been your studs in fantasy? I said, I think Rashee Rice. I've been on him all offseason. And now he looks great. He's been a difference maker. Without him, you can't doubt Patrick Mahomes at all because he's the man. But yeah, I mean, there's a lack of talent now in Kansas City again.
If he tears his ACL and he's put on IR for the rest of the season, he'll probably face a 5 to 8 game suspension when he's back next year.
So you got no Rashee Rice. Hollywood Brown's out. It's a lot. It's a big load now on Xavier Worthy. And you got to get Travis Kelce going again. And maybe Juju steps up. I don't know. To answer Aiden's question, though, I think they are still the biggest team to fear until I see them. Until I see them lose. I think Buffalo is probably playing the best football in the AFC, but I'm going to keep putting the Chiefs as the team to beat until they lose a game, and they just don't lose.
Yeah, are you really going to bet against Patrick Mahomes to elevate nobody receivers around him?
Yeah, Aiden. What are you gonna? No, I'm with you, Ziggy.
No, but you get what I mean, right? Like, as much as I want to panic, what are you supposed to say?
Hey, Ziggy, Divine Comedy says, are the Cardinals still your bay?
You know, I'm not ready to say that the Seahawks are a great team yet because they haven't played. If they beat the Lions and they look good doing it, my opinion of them will change. But yeah, you know, I'm responsive to the evidence. I thought the Cardinals were going to have a good season. Kyler Murray still looks okay, which I'm happy about.
They lost 42 to 14, man.
No, they had a terrible game. They're not nearly as good as I was hoping they would be. Yeah, it's been a tough year for Cardinals believers like me.
At least you're a Vikings
nothing
fan.
else to say.
Hey, at least you're a Vikings
really
fan.
tough loss on top of a tough start to the season.
All right, let's wrap this up here. One more round of applause for producer Will, who stepped in today. Will, great job. And any message?
Great camera control.
Yeah, camera control. I mean, this felt like a real production here. Do you have anything to say?
He's the Joe Flacco of producers. We've got an injury. He steps in immediately. Elite operation.
You want to see something funny? If anyone's listening, like Will, go ahead. Take like 15 seconds here and just share your thoughts on anything. Will was given no prep for this.
I will say one thing, Paul.
I like this.
I'm not sure if I will get invited back on the show after saying this.
Oh boy. So, we are live, by the way.
No, I would just like to reach out to Paul's audience today and say, I've noticed there's a lack of Giants supporters in the chat, and I myself am one, and I'd like to see a little bit more. I know it's tough to be a Giants fan these days, but I'd like to see a little bit more support from the Giants fans and the Paul Farrington Show. And thank you, Paul and Ziggy, for having me here today. Appreciate it. Hope I get invited back soon. And yeah.
I mean, Will, there's just something soothing about your voice. It shines
Producer
through.
Zach needs to watch out.
Yeah, producer Zach needs to watch out. This guy's good. If anyone's on the market looking for a producer, Will knows what he's doing. So. And he's a great boyfriend. All right, why don't we wrap up this show here? Thanks everyone for tuning in. We had a great time on the live stream. We'll be back with more reaction content later this week. Caught myself, Ziggy. And hopefully Will can